Ah, yes, Jool, the green giant, and not the one that sells sweet corn. Yes, hello, welcome to Kerbal Space Program again. Today, I decided that I would embark on a mission to Jool. I guess it's quite an interesting little macrocosm of a system with its 5 moons and enormous gas giant, so it is interesting. And what I decided to do was drop a probe in the orbit of every moon, if I could. That's what I'm going to try to do. And so, as you can probably see, this is post-commentary, because it takes hours to do anything in this game, and yes, nobody has hours to watch somebody trying to build wee probes like this. And so yeah, what I'm going for is just a stack of probes that I can decouple with the docking ports, because I mean, you know, you can come up with more interesting designs, but the docking port stack is just easy. You just stack them all on top of each other and decouple them one by one, as and when is needed. And so yeah, I've just gone for the smallest probe body, a couple of solar panels. I've got the RCS fuel and RCS ports, and just there I realised that a docking port was missing. And that would have been embarrassing if I'd got all the way there and couldn't detach that. And yeah, that fuel tank was too big. And so about here I was just checking the weight, because you know, I gotta get it out into orbit and spin it around wildly. I'm just having some fun here, just blowing things up. And one of them managed to survive, so that's perhaps a good omen. Whee! Spinning around. And yeah, the RCS ports are actually quite good for getting something that small around. It's you know, it's better than the ion engines, anyway, I find. I mean, the ion engines will run forever because the xenon gas fuel does last forever, you know. Even those little tiny tanks have so much in them. But they have 0 thrust near enough, I mean 0.5. And so yeah, I was checking the mass again here, that's about 80 something tons there. So I have to devise a lifter soon enough to get this into orbit. I was just seeing how this nuclear engine fares with all that weight. Just seeing if I needed anything else on it at this point. So that's why I'm hacking gravity, because obviously this stage will be in space. And it's fun to explode things. And so yeah, I realised I had no torque when the engines or RCS were turned off. So I just slapped a bunch of reaction wheels on there, as you do. The magic reaction wheels that somehow make everything spin around. And so yeah, now I move on to the lifter stage, which has to be pretty damn beefy to lift 80 something tons into Kerbin's orbit at least, and then maybe part of the way to Jool, who knows. And so yeah, I just slap on a bunch of these Rocamax tanks with some asparagus staging, and yeah, I've thrown on 6 of the big stacks of tanks there, and that should give us enough fuel. Yeah, getting the staging sorted when you've surrounded the center stack with extra fuel tanks is very difficult. You have to basically clip the camera through the outer tanks so that you can see the decouplers. And yeah, it's extremely fiddly and confusing and took a while to get right. And as this is post-commentary, I can tell you I haven't got it right yet. So yeah, now I slap on a bunch of mainsails. Those two that don't have mainsails are just fuel. And those will be the first to be detached so that I drop a bunch of weight without losing any thrust. And the space tape. Yes, lots of space tape. You just can't have enough of those struts. I mean, they do actually have mass, so if your craft has just a silly amount of struts on it, it's only going to hurt you more than help you. So yeah, here's a test flight. As you can see, the staging is not set up right, so those tanks without without engines did not detach first. The tanks that still had fuel and engines running detached first and went flying off, leaving the rest of the craft behind. So yeah, here I am fixing the fuel lines again, so I get them in the right place. I'm putting some thermal generators on there because, you know, since they made things actually drain power, like vectoring and torque and just, you know, the thing just needs power to run now. It's horrible when you run out. So yeah, those thermolytic generators are great because it's just a constant power source. So even though I probably don't need it because there is a power generator in those engines, and there I left my engines on full throttle to explode. But yeah, even though there is a power generating turbine in these engines, it's nice just to have some power there just in case. So I did get the staging right this time, but the structural integrity is not fantastic. So it just blew up anyway, which is nice. And there I don't know what happened there. I decoupled the docking port, and I think the magnetic pull just sort of kept it together and it went spinning down. And so yeah, I realised that I was going too fast in the atmosphere for my liking. I think that's what I thought was causing the structural failure, and so I switched out some of the tanks for skipper engines, and they weren't powerful enough. So big old explosion on the launch pad. And yeah, off camera there I just switched back to the mainsails, and yeah, you saw me lining up the orbits there as well a few seconds ago, so that I had a nice Jool window, sorry. Wrong colour. It might be Jupiter if you were colourblind, I suppose. So this is an attempt, I suppose, but it was more of a test flight and more structural failures. So yeah, I put some Separatrons on the tanks so that, because I use the hydraulic detachment manifolds because they have the highest radial decoupling force. But it obviously just isn't enough with this craft, so I'm just sticking a couple of these little Separatrons on. They don't weigh much, they don't, but they do have a good thrust to mass ratio, and so you know, that really flings those tanks away when you decouple them. And so yeah, here we go again. I have to watch that tank like that because there's no engine attached to it. And yeah, every time I detach those fuel tanks, something explodes. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's probably a fuel line or something, but I don't know. And there you go, the Separatrons worked. They flung the tank away nice and far from the center stack, so this time it actually worked and didn't explode in the upper atmosphere. So yes, we got into an orbit now, which, yeah, they've done thousands of times in this game, no doubt, but it has to be done. So yeah, I'm getting into a low orbit because there's a lot of weight to be lifted here. So it's probably easier to transfer from a higher orbit, but you know, it's just, it takes more fuel to get up to a higher orbit, so I put it in an orbit about 87 kilometers, which is out of the atmosphere, and you know, it's not bad. And I managed to get it circularized quite nicely, first time, which is good for me, because I'm not great at this game. I do cock things up quite often. And so yeah, I got the launch window lined up very nicely there and got an encounter right away. So here I am just adjusting inclination and again. Yeah, I have problems setting up maneuver nodes, I really do. And so yeah, just tweaking it, trying to get as close to Jool as I can on the first approach. I think I managed to get it down to about 1,000,000 kilometers, which, yeah, it's not ideal, but I mean, when you're like millions of miles away trying to make these tiny adjustments, it's so hard to get it right next to it. Because I mean, ideally you want to come in and perform an error capture, which would mean getting down to about 120 kilometers, you know, rather than 1,000,000. But it's next to impossible. I don't know. I've never managed it. I'm sure some people are probably just amazing at this game, or maybe they just use the MechJeb mods, or you know, something that makes it a little better than human eye. Because yes, computers are much better at calculating these things than the human brain. And so there, the main lifter stage runs out, and we move to the transfer stage, which I don't think I recorded it, but I put some Poodle engines on those big tanks on the side there. And it's a good job I did, because I don't know if you noticed just then, but the nuclear engine fell off. It just wobbled and cracked and just fell off and flew off behind us. So I do the rest of the transfer and the rest of the mission with a missing engine. I mean, I could have reverted to launch, gone through the launch and orbit again, but frankly I just couldn't be bothered. I figured 4 Poodle engines would be enough to get into a transfer, and you know, they're pretty efficient. They're not as efficient as the nuclear engines, but you know, there's a lot of fuel in those tanks, and there I'm transferring the fuel from the center tank, which had the nuclear engine on, into those side ones, making them actually uneven. And so I vowed to pay attention to that. Yeah, because one of the tanks will run out before the other one, and when that happens, you just go into a death spin, you know? So you gotta watch out for that. And yeah, just extending those solar panels and transferring the fuel again, because I actually did have to reload there, because I forgot to extend the solar panels and I ran out of electricity. You know, I was saying before about the thermolytic generators. I didn't put them on this stage, so yeah, that was quite silly of me. And this is just me trying to look around to see if I can see any planets, but this far into deep space it's unlikely. You might see maybe 1 pixel, but that's about it. So yeah, I'm just fruitlessly looking around trying to see if I can see Jool looming up on us, but we are millions of kilometers away. It's highly unlikely. And see you in part 2.